This was my little thing that I made. Um, so when it comes to cravings, this is talking about late night snacking, but the one thing I want to make sure that is clarified is that there's nothing wrong with like there's no specific time of day where you're allowed to eat or not allowed to eat. So when we talk about like cravings, it's not trying to ignore our hunger or suppress something that our body really needs. It's about bringing awareness to, okay, are these signals actually something that my physical body needs, or is it something that my emotional body needs, and I need to find a more supportive way to handle whatever is the issue that's coming about that my body's needing these trying to fill and get comfort through distraction with food. Anyways, so there's not one specific rule of when you're allowed to eat or when you have to turn it off. We want to be aware of our cravings and how we're feeling and honor it whenever we need to honor it. So just getting that out of the way. Okay, so cravings can come from a lot of different things. So when you're feeling a craving, here's a little list of things that you can go through. One, it may actually be a signal from your body going, hello, I'm telling you to think about food because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of nutrients to like do all the things that I'm doing to keep your heart beating, to keep your lungs going, to keep your brain going. It's a complex thing. Like it needs the tools to do its job. So if you find you're having these unmanageable cravings all the time, the first question to ask is, did I eat enough today? Did I eat enough quality? Did I eat enough quantity? That's the first place to go. Like, wait a second, is this an actual signal that my body needs more? It will take time to figure out how to listen to your body to decide when it needs more, and we'll be able to practice that through like trial and error and bringing awareness. But that's the first question: is this actually something I need to honor because my body hasn't gotten enough in today? And often you'll notice that the cravings are for things that are like refined grains or sugary stuff or sweet stuff, because when your body's lacking in either nutrients or energy that it needs to do its job, it will send out the message to be like, "Okay, go get the quickest source of glucose, the energy that my brain wants to use. Go get the quickest source that like it'll be digested and absorbed super fast." So that's the processed sugars and the refined grains because it digests really quickly and it can hit the brain and give us that little dopamine hit. So that's why you'll probably notice really strong urges for like sweets and really high carby stuff because the body's needing the quickest source of energy. So that's the first thing to go through. Take a look at what you've been eating through the day, the past few days, and be like, wait a second, have I been eating enough? Second is the craving can be a response to some type of restriction, whether that's physical restriction saying you can't have something or an emotional restriction where you're allowing yourself to eat it, but you're beating yourself up the whole time during and afterwards. We'll go into each of these categories in a little more detail. But the third one that I want to point out is sometimes those cravings and those cues to be like, okay, go get a snack or go eat this food that you're used to eating because it gives you comfort. Sometimes it can be habitual where it's like I can't really figure out a reason like why I'm doing this, but it's just something. It just feels like a habit. It's something that I do like every night at 10 p.m. I sit on the couch and I have a snack. It doesn't matter if I'm hungry or if I'm full or if I've had an easy day or a hard day. It just kind of is what's part of my routine. So when it feels like it's something that is a habitual thing, we want to unravel that a little bit and figure out where that came from. Oftentimes, what happens is habits are formed because something has been repeated, but at one point, this this action of eating food that isn't serving really a nourishment purpose, but it's serving more of like a comfort and distraction. At one point, that habit served us. It like saved us from the emotional distress that we were going through when we didn't have any other tools in our toolbox to like cope with that. And if that then gets repeated, it becomes a habit. So maybe it was something that like 5 years ago happened that you didn't have the coping mechanisms to deal with whatever stress or emotions were coming, and your body just wants to protect you. So it wanted to distract or comfort you from those feelings that you weren't didn't have the resources to handle in that moment. So then it'll turn you towards food to provide you that comfort and distraction. And then once it's repeated, maybe now you've evolved, you've grown, you feel more like resilient with your mental health, but you're like, I don't get it. Like, I feel I'm confident in myself. I don't know why I keep like doing this same thing. And it's probably because it was something that served a purpose then, and then it's just become a habit. So now we can bring awareness to that, realize, okay, we can let go of this habit and this tool because it's not serving a purpose anymore. And then we'll try to swap in healthier routines. But that's an important awareness to have, and to not beat yourself up. Like, at some point that habit served a purpose. It helped get you to here. We want to thank that version of yourself because you did what you could with what you had to get you to this moment. And now you have the strength and resilience to move forward and find something else to cope with those emotions. So, those are a couple things I wanted to point out. When we talk about not eating enough, that can mean not eating enough quantity, energy, intake in general for all the things your body needs to do. You'll probably notice, like, oh, cravings are get bigger around my period. The body is going, there's lots going on when our hormones are fluctuating and it's trying to prepare the body for all this magical stuff. Our metabolism goes up. So we want to honor those hunger cues and eat more because our body is using more energy. But often what happens is we go, well, no, I normally don't eat this much. I shouldn't need to have a bigger plate than this or go for seconds. So then we end up getting kind of a double whammy where we're not eating enough, and then we also fall into this restrictive mindset. So then the cravings just persist. So understanding that your body's not a calculator, it's going to need different things in different amounts. Like, say you're healing from a cold, your immune system is flying through nutrients, using up vitamin C, using up vitamin D, using up all this energy to fight this bacteria. It's like, once your body's coming out of that, it's going to feel hungrier because it needs to reimburse the body with the nutrients and the energy that it went through. So it could be that you're lacking quality with lacking some type of nutrient deficient in something, or it could just be that you're not having enough food in general. That could be telling your brain will be signaling to you to like keep getting food. And if you're like, well, how can I not be eating enough if like I just can't stop gaining weight, and how do I eat? I shouldn't be wanting to like eat more if I'm trying to like find my healthiest weight. And that's when it can be we may be eating enough in calories and quantity and energy, but the body's still yelling at you to eat more because it's like, we didn't get the vitamin A, we didn't get the calcium that we still need. So it's going to keep telling you, nope, keep going, keep going. You didn't have enough. You're not satisfied. I'm still missing stuff. So that's where it can be quantity or quality. So to figure out what's the right quality and quantity for you is to remember you're the only you that's ever existed. There's no like magical rule book that says what you need to have. The best way to start is to pay attention to how you're feeling. Like, write down everything you're eating and drinking right now. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Make some changes. Pay attention again. It's constant trial and error. And if you're looking for somewhere to start, you can kind of use this as a little guide. We're kind of already focusing on things like this, like protein at every meal, getting 4 to 6 handfuls of plants, as giving us a little structure to be like, okay, let's just start here and then assess, see how our body feels, and then move on from there. So this is something you can kind of get curious with, be like, all right, let me experiment for 2 weeks. I'm going to try to get 3 to 5 portions of something from each of these categories, and let me just see how my body feels. And then I can make a decision. Now, when it comes to restriction, physical or mental, physical restriction is saying, I can't have that. No, that's not allowed. Setting these rules and not allowing yourself to eat it. Our brain always wants what we can't have. And when we're saying, I can't have that, we're putting our focus on it. And now the brain's going to think that there's this lack of this thing. So it's going to try to get it as much as it can when it's available. You know, it's like you say, I can't have cookies, I can't have cookies. And then boom, you let yourself have one cookie. It's like, oh, All right, now we have access to cookies. We better get as many in as we can before she takes them away again. So then you go from 1 to 16 or the whole box. And then you're like, I can't have cookies in the house. And that's not to say that to not be in a restrictive mindset, you need to say yes to every opportunity to eat these certain things. That's not what full permission means. It means that you get to make a choice. It's not because you can or can't, or you're not allowed, or that's good or bad. You get to make a choice deciding what ratio and what amounts of food make you feel your best. It's a choice, it's not about control. So keep that in mind when you're making choices around food, that it's a choice. Food freedom means you can say yes, means you can also say no. It's that you're you're doing it on purpose and you're making a choice for you. The other type of restriction is a mental, emotional kind of restriction where you allow yourself to eat the food, but then your little voice in your brain goes, "You shouldn't have had that. Can't believe you did that. You said we weren't going to do that." Oh my! And then guilt and shame. So physically, you're eating the foods, but mentally, there's not actually a full permission because now you're getting in trouble for eating it. So the way we need to kind of navigate this is changing our mindset on how we talk about food. Going, I can have whatever I want when I want. I get to choose what it is what I want. And when things happen where we're like, oops, that didn't feel like the right choice, we don't have to beat ourselves up about it. We just go, huh, all right, take that evidence. I'm going to learn and move forward in the future. Next time, you know what? I might try making a different choice. It's not that you suck or you have no willpower or you're terrible and deserve to feel guilty. You just go, huh, I didn't love the outcome of that. I'm going to try making a different choice. It's like when we go driving and we like take a right and we realize, wow, there's a lot of potholes in that road. You're not like, oh my God, you're such an idiot for taking right. You're like, I don't know, this is new territory. Now you just go, okay, you know what? Next time, it's not actually faster to go right. I'm going to go a different direction. You just make a different choice. We can do all of that without beating ourselves up. So, some ways to help ourselves ease out of this restrictive mindset is instead of focusing on what we need to take away, we focus on what we can add. Like we focus on together adding in nutrients, adding in protein, adding in colors, adding in movement we enjoy, adding in sleep and rest and stress reduction versus cutting everything out. Talk often about ditching guilt. What we eat and how we look isn't an impact on our worthiness. And I kind of just mentioned this mantra, I can have these foods whenever I want. I don't need to keep past fullness now. I get to choose what it is I want. The way you speak to yourself is really important. Just this is some more examples you'll see of things that we can add so we can focus on our health, but focus on what can we add in, and it'll naturally crowd out the things that don't serve us as well. But when we focus on what we want more of, we get more of that thing. When we focus on what we don't want, we get more of what we don't want. So where you put the spotlight of your attention is really important. And then here we talked about whenever it has become a habit. So this takes a little unraveling of deciding, okay, where did this habit start? What solution, what fix was I trying to get from the comfort and distraction of food? And is it a coping mechanism I still need, or have I evolved past that and now I can add in different habits? So this takes a little bit of kind of detective work. This is when journaling is really helpful to be like, okay, where did these habits even come from? And consistently checking in with yourself is important because things happen. Things happen at like the speed of light. And if we're not creating the habit of continuously checking in with self and being like, hey, I'm busy in motion, but like, am I going in the right direction? People, there's like a visual of being like, okay, you're constantly climbing up this ladder. Is the ladder even leaned up against the right house that you want to get on? So you guys are already doing this habit, doing your check-ins, having our calls together, showing up to things like this, because it gives you the space to be like, okay, is my life built on habits that are taking me in the direction that I want to go, or do I need to change some stuff? When you're in when you're in it, like when you're in that moment, the habit of the craving, I just wanted to give you guys a couple tools of like, okay, how do we like break that cycle? So when you notice the craving, and first you go through that, like, okay, did I eat enough today? Is this actually hunger? Have I been have I been setting rules and boundaries around food? Is that why I'm hyper focused on it? If you go through all those and you're like, no, this is just like a habit. So I want to break this cycle because it's no longer serving me. A couple tools you can use is to just say the word halt, like stop, just like pause, just give yourself a little distance and go, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And that's like a good cue that you can go through. One that I didn't write on here is the 3D method. So make a commitment to yourself that every time you get this urge, this craving, and you've gone through the list and you realize it's just a habit, it's not actually your body asking for more nourishment, it's just a habit, and you want to switch it out, you go the 3Ds. You go delay, distract, and decide. So create a game plan for, okay, the cue is when I notice that I'm going through those thoughts of these strong urges and cravings, first delay. Create, say I'm going to take 10-minute pause. I'm just like, I'm not going to make a decision yet. I'm just going to take 10 minutes. And then distract. Think of something that you're going to do in those 10 minutes, whether it be I'm going to um, go brush my teeth, or I'm going to do a lap around the house, or I'm going to call my friend. Think of something that you're going to do to distract yourself in that 10 minutes. And then once you've gone through these steps that you've decided that fit for your lifestyle, you pick the amount of time that you'll delay, you picked what you'll do to distract for that time period, and then come back and make a decision. You may choose to honor the craving and intentionally partake, and that's the key. We just want to live with intention. So you may decide, you're like, you know what, no, actually this would be super satisfying, and I think this fits for my overall lifestyle, and like this is what I want to do. Okay, but at least you know that it wasn't a habit that has control over you, that you have chosen intentionally to do the thing, and that changes your mindset around it. And you may realize once you go through that delay and distract, you're like, oh, I don't actually have a need for it, so I can just kind of move on. These give you some things to do along the way. This other idea is like having an urge jar, giving yourself a little win. Like, this isn't to say every time you ignore an actual hunger signal to like celebrate. This is not about ignoring hunger. This is about creating new patterns when old habits aren't serving you anymore. And so you can like have a little jar, and every time that you choose to do something different, to make a different choice that better supports you, throw something in the jar and then be like, hey, I'm going to go on a date night after I get like 10 things in the jar. Um, and the best thing to put in the jar is like write yourself a little note about what you're proud of, or something you're grateful for, and then fold it out and put it in the jar. And then whenever you're counting all your things, you also get to read a couple things you're grateful for. So let me stop the screen share so I can see if there is questions. All right. I'm just going to take a peek into the chat. Okay, so one of the things in the chat says, sometimes struggling with trying to figure out that balance of like having a candy as a treat, but then once you have it, it's like, boom, it's on your head. It's like on your mind all the time. So the next time this comes up, stay curious about, are you actually allowing full permission of this thing to be present in your life? Or is there still a little voice in your head going, oh, you said you weren't going to have that. Okay, just have this one. And then starting on Monday, we'll like go sugar free, or we'll cut that out. So that might be a little emotional restriction coming in. Or if you're eating it going, oh, you were doing so good, you really ruined it with this. Was it really like, so then you're beating yourself up about it. So my my recommendation would be the next time that you intentionally choose to have a treat, because you're like, hey, food can be more than just freaking the building blocks of your body. It's like it can be comfort, it can be connection, it can be social experience. We just don't want it to be the only thing we use for comfort in a way that it ends up hurting us in the end. But that's what I would say, is get curious about what's the self-talk that's going on when you have it. Are you actually present and enjoying it? and telling yourself, hey, I can have this whenever I want. So I'm going to enjoy it in the portion that feels good for my body. And if I want it again tomorrow, I could have it again tomorrow. So just check and see what the talk is in your head through that. And what if you consistently make poor choices? Doesn't that become a self-sabotaging habit? So if you find you're continuously making poor choices and now it's become this habit and it's just being repeated, 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 that's what these moments of checking in with yourself are for. We're not trying to be complacent and going, oh, I'm doing this thing over and over again and it's not serving me. Oh, well, we want to go, hey, I'm doing this thing over and over again and I'm realizing it's not giving me what I want. Boom. First awareness is the first thing, and you realize this isn't serving me anymore. I don't want to repeat it anymore. So first you have to become aware of what is this habit that's not serving you anymore, and then create a plan to make a different choice. It's just all about choices. If you realize there's a consistent habit that's been on repeat and it's no longer serving you, you're got to a place where you're like, you know what? I feel like my mood and energy and health could be better and this isn't helping with that. Time to make a new choice and make a new habit. So you can use those different tools of like focusing on what you can add in, figuring out where that habit started, figuring out what other ways you can cope that are more supportive to the lifestyle that you now want to lead. So that would be my answer to that. But feel free to, if I didn't answer that clearly, you can either type some more in the message or feel free to unmute yourself if you have something else to ask. But yeah, perfect. So, did anyone else, like, from kind of that chat, feel free to, like, you can throw up a little thumbs up or just say yes. Did that give you a little extra information about cravings and how we feel around food and give you a couple extra tools that you could use moving forward? Yeah, thank thumbs up. Awesome. Weekend cravings. Yes, let's talk about that. So the question was like, well, what about things are going really well during the weekend and then boom, cravings hit. It would be all the same, going through the same motions. It's like, because it's still a habit, it's just happening a certain time of the week. So now we have to go through, okay, what are the things what's the habit that's happening? Is it overeating? Is it choosing foods that don't make me feel good? And what is my self talk throughout it? Am I actually present and enjoying it? Or am I telling myself, okay, it's like from Monday to Friday, I am good. I don't need any of this. So when the weekend hits, it's like, boom, I better get in as much of this as I possibly can. So that's where we hit that box of, okay, there's a bit of emotional restriction going on because it's like, well, I can't have it during the week. This is my only opportunity. I better get in as much as I can. So I'd say that's the biggest one, is this all or nothing mentality, where it's like Monday to Friday, our motivation's good, but we have this idea that success means perfection. And so the moment we get to Friday or Saturday, our energy's down here. And then we've been like, well, I was good all week. So I'll reward myself for being good. And so then it becomes this like back and forth thinking that you need to, that these type of experiences or certain foods are only rewards for if you do something good versus it's just part of your life if you want it to be part of your life. So I'd say it kind of, for weekend cravings, you go through the same process. If you realize you're eating enough quality, quantity, um, check the self-talk if there's some emotional restriction throughout it on the weekend, or if there's physical restriction of the things that you're suppressing those cravings or wants during the week, and then when your willpower and energy is really low at the weekend, then it's kind of like, boom, well, I screwed up, whatever, I'll start again Monday, and then you're just bouncing back and forth. So I'd say the self-talk is probably the biggest thing, and how you measure success. If success is only eating clean, then anytime you veer off of that, it feels like a failure. So you just jump off the deep end and then it feels like you're starting over every Monday. So that those would be my 2 cents on weekend cravings. It's often related to how we talk to ourselves and what we believe success is. That would be my thoughts on that. So hopefully that gave a little direction on there. But did anyone have anything on that topic that they want to kind of go over, or any experiences, or does that feel like it gave you a little bit of pique the curiosity about questions to start asking yourself throughout the week?
Yeah, the weekend thing is kind of like you said, is the skills that you want to use. What you say there often is the skills you want to use for success are what to maintain. So it's kind of like when we think of it the weekend, it's like we think those skills are only for the week and then let's forget about them on the weekend. So it's to
Yeah,
get more in the habit of that these are life skills, not just dieting skills.
yeah, that's a really good observation to make, because this on or off mentality tends to come when we've had a past history of going on and off diets, and the diets were really restrictive and they didn't provide us the tools of like, okay, how do you actually make choices versus just putting your faith in this list of allowed or not allowed foods. So then anytime you go off of what is allowed, it feels like you're going off of your diet, and then there's this idea that you need to start over again, instead of having this idea that like, okay, we don't want to go on and off a diet. We want to have a diet, because how we nourish ourselves is important, and how we find joy in our life is important. We want to figure out what that balance is. So, yeah, that's a really good observation that it can come often from that dieting mentality of on or off and perfect or nothing. And you have to start over. There's no starting over. It's like, we're just riding the wave and we're figuring it out as we go. So if we can kind of ditch that idea of being like, oh, I have to start over, I screwed up. It's like there's no screwing up. You've never lived today before. We're in the process of figuring it out. It's just part of figuring it out.
I find that's the thing is today when I went into school, there was Valentine's, so there was chocolate everywhere. And I know that losing the mentality is helping because
Mhm.
then I didn't want any. Where when I'm saying, because the other way I don't want any, I don't want any, well, I would add five chocolates today. Where today I was looking at it and saying, oh, I can have a chocolate when I want, which I did yesterday. I had one. Is today, no, I didn't want one. So I was, and there was fudge and everything. And when I got in the car, it was kind of like, oh, look at that, because it just is starting to be part of what you're thinking.
Yeah. No, that's really big, and that's a great holidays and things like this are a really good opportunity to like practice these mindset shifts and get curious about like, oh, do I want that? And zooming out and realizing we have multiple wants. Like, yes, I want to enjoy that taste and flavor. Obviously, it's built to like light up my brain and be a good experience, yes. And then realizing also we have other wants too. I want to sleep well tonight. I want to have consistent energy. I want to have a high libido. I want to have a good mood. I want to not have chronic disease. And so we get to look at all of our wants and be like, okay, these are all the things I want. I don't have to ignore any of them, but which ones do I want more? It's like that. I find when we switch our mindset to try to remove the emotional power, because food is so linked to our emotions. But say if we take like money for example, yeah, I want to buy everything I see. I want those new shoes, and I want a bigger house, and I want a fancier car, and I also don't want to have to work 100 hours a week, and I don't want to be in debt, and I want to have time to spend with my family, and I want to be stress free. So all of those wants can exist in the same, like, all of those wants can exist. We just get to choose what fits for us. It's like, okay, maybe I'll buy the new shoes, but I'll say no to the bigger house, because then that'll saying no to that means I say yes to having more freedom with my work life balance. And so just kind of understanding we have multiple wants. They're all okay. They can all be present, but we want to have an honest perspective about what do we want the most. And that changes day to day. So I find that that's really helpful, realizing it's okay to have wants, and we can say no to one want, and it doesn't mean we're being restrictive, because it means we're focusing on saying yes to the wants that we want more. Does that make sense, that idea of multiple wants?
Yeah, and
It
then
does.
I really wanted yesterday a raisin cookie, And so I had it. So instead of having all the chocolates and the thousands of things, when I got to the thing I did want, it just tasted so much better too.
Yeah, yeah, realizing what's worth it to you and knowing that every opportunity is not an obligation. Like there's all this food all the time. We don't have to say yes to everything, but we everyone's unique. So it's like you realize that that's a thing that you like and you enjoy. And so knowing that you have this full permission, you're like, "Ooh, I'm going to really enjoy that thing." You can it's easier to pass along the stuff that like we don't super love. Like before I used to smash all these snacks while watching TV, and it's like you weren't even enjoying it because you're distracted and it's just a habitual thing. And you're like, then you have a stomach ache and your hands reaching the bottom of the bag, and you're like, wait a second, was that really worth it, or would it be more worth it for the days when I call my mom and go, do you want to go get an ice cream, and we take the kids and it's an experience and you feel good, like so no, learning what is most worth it for you is really helpful as well, and that's going to be different to everybody. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so circling back to weekends where routine is off, and that kind of creates a little spiral of changes. And so what we can do to help with that is when it feels like a lack of routine is throwing about us off, let's try creating routine. And the routine when it's like a work day may be different than a routine when it's on the weekend. And that's where it's really helpful to have meal principles versus like a meal plan so that there's flexibility of when your routine is off, you still have the tools to make decisions around food. For example, routine during the weekend, it's like, oh, well, I sit down, I have 3 meals because I have breakfast and then a break at lunch and then dinner and then usually a snack in between. And but then when the weekend comes, it's like, oh my God, you're getting up at different times. You're in a place where you don't even have access to your fridge. So then what? So if we can fall back on these principles that we follow is okay, can I be mindful when I'm eating? Can I, when possible, choose foods that help keep me physically full? And when that's even out of routine, when we have like zero control over what's available, what we do have control over is A, our mindset about it, and our presence and how we're consuming it. So say we have no control over anything that's around, what we can do is we can take a couple deep breaths. We can chew our food, we can taste the food, we can practice stopping when we're satisfied instead of stuffed. And then if you're realizing you're like, okay, these wherever I'm at, the only options are foods that make me feel like shit. I'm not getting towards my goal. You also get to choose that you can change your routine and what it is that you're doing. You can change anything. If your weekend is really not something that's actually fulfilling you and bringing you joy, and it's bringing you super far away from your like your health goals, you can choose to make a different choice and be like, you know what, yeah, that might be fun. That's what I'm used to, but I'm realizing it's not giving me the full picture of like what I want for my life. So I'm going to choose to do something different. I'm going to hang around with different friends, or I'm going to meal prep on Thursday nights so that I have a lot of quick grab and go snacks so that I know that I'm getting the nutrients that my body needs. And then whenever we're out and I have less control, I can just focus on chewing and stopping it satisfied. So there's lots of things that we can do, even if the routine is off, to also still prioritize how we feel. And that's something we can also like when we talk through our on our one-on-ones, and this goes for everybody, like that's a great opportunity to go through your specific lifestyle, being like, okay, this is what my Saturday, Sunday looks like. These are the problem areas. What can we do to address it? What happens often is we get overwhelmed and paralyzed and not able to make changes because it's easy to say like just make a different choice. But when we have a big zoomed out view of it and we say a sweeping statement like, my weekends throw me right off track, our brain will feel overwhelmed with that information. It's like, so we won't be able to take a step because it feels like too big of a problem. Like, my weekends throw me off. We're like, whoa, that's too much to handle. Like, when does the weekend start? Is it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that like shit feels like it's hitting the fan? So it feels too overwhelming. So what we need to do is start being more specific about like, okay, what is really throwing me off? All right, so it's not Friday. Oh, it's Saturday. The mornings are fine though, because we usually have breakfast. Okay. Oh, so it's Saturday dinners because I end up being too hungry. And then when we're out for dinner, I end up eating way too much and then my stomach hurts. So then it throws me off Sunday. So now we've narrowed it down from my whole weekends are shit to going, oh, I just need to plan to have an easy to grab snack for Saturday afternoon so that I can be more calm, cool, and collected to get to dinner. And then the dominoes will fall in the right direction. So, really, instead of doing a big sweeping statement of like, I can't do the weekends, like it throws me right off, figure out what actually is the problem. And when you have a specific problem, you can create a specific solution. And that goes for anything, like whether it's weekends or just being like, um, I don't know, any problems. You'll notice we'll feel overwhelmed and not be able to make change if we have a sweeping statement. I can never work out. It's like, well, if you tell your brain that, it's like, well, shit, that's a big problem. Don't know if I can handle that. But if you say, I have a hard time, I haven't found a gym that I enjoy yet. It's like, okay, that's a specific problem. We can find a specific solution to that. So just chunk down the problems until they become specific so you can take specific action. So that's, I hope that that's kind of helpful for those issues that feel overwhelming to make choices. Keep chunking it down until you figure out what's one thing that's throwing a wrench in your gears, and then you can find a simple solution for that. So we just chunk it down till it feels manageable. Yeah. Um, but I want to make sure that I don't. I could talk about this stuff all night because the reason I got into this whole world was because food, like, it can either be a super big joy or it can wreck your freaking world. I had everything going for me. My job was great, my friends, my family, my partner. And for some reason, I could not figure out how to manage my eating. It took over my whole brain. It made me feel like shit. So I am just so determined to not let anyone else waste as much time as I did losing good moments and memories to stressing and obsessing about food and feeling out of control and not feeling good in your body. Um, so never hesitate to like reach out or share anything. I'm always available. So I appreciate you guys for taking your precious time out of your day to hang and chat. And if you want a copy of that late night snack guide just to have on hand, you just let me know and I'll send it to you. But other than that, I hope you guys have an awesome night. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you. Bye, guys. Night, night.